Hey, everybody, welcome to a special show today. Today we have Lee, President of Sales at Augusta Lawn Care Services, and we have Marcus, who is an owner of a lawn care service in Redmond, Washington. So today, folks, let's get ready to rumble. We have a great show for you today. Up for the topic of debate is, should there be hard stop times at the end of the day for crews, or should we just work till we get it done? And over here at the top here, we have Marcus. And Marcus, could you tell us what your position is going to be today?
My position is defending hard stop times. So I'm anti-overtime. What my crews do, they start at 7:50 in the morning, they get off at 3:50 p.m. That's a perfect 8-hour day. And we stop there. We don't go into overtime. We don't get all this extra sort of things done. We just stop there. We do hard stop times.
Okay, and Lee, what's your position?
I am pro flexibility all day. That's all it is. Your employees want flexibility. I want flexibility. So is life. So I am pro flexibility.
I love it. So I know that these two think that they know better than the other. And as
Yes.
time has gone on, we learn and we get better. And it went from me to Lee to Marcus. And I tell you, when I did it, I just put 130 mows on there and a whole bunch of projects. And we just did them till we got done. They hated my guts. We were done at 8 p.m. on Friday p.m. sometimes. And if I got a mow accepted in the day, I just threw it on there for the day and their routes just got bigger. So I was not beloved like Marcus. So let me ask you some questions about this. So, Marcus, you say that you want them to stop, but what if they were on a route and the route was in this nice little neighborhood and there was none of the other crews around? Would you have them come back to the shop, or would you have them just stick it out and finish it?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Basically, my whole service area is very route dense. So everything's pretty much next to each other anyway. Even if they're in the same neighborhood, yeah, it's a 3:50 stop time, come back to shop. In my area too, and that's a big deal about 3:50 is if you're going past that time, then you're hitting close to 5 o'clock traffic. So the drive back is taking twice as long as it did otherwise. So yeah, we basically we stop at 3:50. We don't go past that. Anything that doesn't get done the previous day just gets put on the next day, and we always get it done.
Lee?
Yeah. I mean, do you want me to address exactly what Marcus is saying, or do you want me? Is there a question? I mean, how do we want to get into this?
I think that you should take the question how I said, because not everybody has areas like he does. So most of the time, we're going to send them somewhere else in another city the next day. So we're going to pull them back at 3:50, or are we going to have them stick it out?
Yeah. So for being pro flexibility, if there's like one, maybe two more jobs right near a crew, if you look at it from an asset utilization perspective, as well as strictly from a function of efficiency in your business, it is more efficient to do that one or two extra jobs. We also believe in pay for performance at Augusta, which means the more work you get done in a day, the higher you're going to get paid. If I move that one or two jobs off to the next day, I'm actually potentially hurting my crew's pay for the next day because I'm creating an inefficient route. So from an asset utilization perspective and a function of efficiency in your business, it makes sense to tack on that one, two extra jobs just to wrap up that portion of your route or your customer base for the day in most cases.
Okay, but Marcus is arguing the overtime. So if you're pushing them into overtime on a Friday and making them push to get it done, are you actually making money at that point?
That's a beautiful thing about flexibility. When you manage your company and your routes with flexibility, typically what's going to happen is when you gain those little bits of efficiency, right? I like to think of efficiency gains like a snowball effect, right? You had 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all of a sudden it's this big ball rolling down the hill carried by its own momentum. And the idea behind tacking on those little bit of extra bits of efficiency throughout the day will typically allow for a more manageable day towards the end of the week, not pending any, natural disasters or major client issues. So what happens in these cases is I'm eliminating overtime by increasing efficiency, and then my crews will typically get off earlier on Fridays. And spoiler alert, and Marcus cannot debunk this, I have never had an employee come to me on a Friday afternoon and say, I actually wish I could have worked longer, Lee. No, every single employee on a Friday afternoon is thankful when they get off early. So that's why we'll sometimes drag work forward, give them longer days earlier in the week. every employee I've ever met, myself included, I like getting off early on a Friday. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, Marcus, you gonna let him talk smack to you like that?
So here's the deal. We tried this. And for people that don't know, Liz, you were originally the general manager of the Bellingham shop. Then you taught Lee everything he knows. He became the general manager of the Bellingham shop. And then Lee taught me everything I know. And then I became the general manager. But typically what happens is the apprentice takes on the master. And I hate to do this, but I got to take on Lee and I got to destroy him. Everybody's listening to this. This is not easy for me to do as somebody I learned a lot from. But we tried this. We tried 40-hour work weeks in terms of 10-hour days. The crew was like, yeah, let's do 10-hour days. That's a longer work day. No hard stop time of 3:50. It's 10-hour days or whenever you get your route done, basically. What happens is in those first couple of days, they know it's going to be a super long day. If you're in the spring or summer, it doesn't matter where you are. It's going to be extremely hot. It's very labor intensive if you're doing lawn care, landscaping. You're outside, you're lifting all this heavy stuff. And what happens is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you get a lot of people just calling out. And then what happens is the reverse snowball effect of what Lee was talking about is on Friday and Saturday, people are having to work because they don't want to work the harder days. They want to work the second half of the week. And I have a whole bunch of stats that prove workers actually want to have less work days and less hours worked in a day. And so, yeah, basically it's here. I'll just get into it and then maybe
throw them at us.
Have a rebuttal and respond to this. But Walden University, they did a 82-page report for 2,500 workers across basically every industry, all different types of careers. They took a 40-hour work week. They reduced it to 35. Employees felt way better, more energized, and less stressed. And actually, there was the same revenues too. Productivity increased. That study was done in 2015 and another one done in 2017. And since those years, people just want to work less and less and less, closer to 30 hours a week. So we have a hard stop time. Lee and I kind of agree on that, is people do want to work less. And so basically what happens is when we do have the hard stop time and we are on P4P, which my location is also on P4P, they get all their day done early and then they're off early. So when I say 3:50 p.m. stop time, it just means we're not going beyond that.
Lee?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I do agree with Marcus that we are seeing a trend in the labor force that people are okay with working less hours full-time across Europe, as well as most of the other Western countries in the United States is now being classified as really anything over 30 hours a week and not so much 40 solely. Whereas historically speaking, anything less than 40 hours a week was typically part-time. Now, anything above 30 is traditionally now considered full-time. So I agree with Marcus. People are typically looking for less hours across most industries. However, what I want to do is provide what I would call, once again, flexibility. And since Marcus had to bring up resources, I also have resources, and one of mine is from ADP. Now, if you don't know what that is, they are one of the largest time tracking and payroll softwares in the world, and they actually published a study as well. I have it pulled up here from Pamela Delocte, and the overwhelming majority of employees actually prefer flex time, and flex time is where you allow flexible start and end times into their day. And it is ultimately a conversation that needs to happen either during the onboarding process or as they become a little bit longer tenured with your company. And that's, once again, why I'm pro flexibility.
Got it. So Marcus,
That
go ahead.
My point. Flexibility, they want flexibility. They want the less hours. But if you're making them work longer, that's not flexibility. That's you being the manager saying, hey, there's only one or two in that same neighborhood. Go get them done. So that has nothing to do with flexibility. Flexibility is I overhire. I have less hours per employee, which everybody prefers. I always get the schedule done. Everything works very well. It's a big snowball effect. Productivity is higher. If you have P4P, efficiency is higher. You make a lot more money. You're not in overtime. But yeah, it's not very flexible sounding to me if you're saying to your employees, hey, I know you want to be off. I know you just finished your schedule, but I'm adding more to your schedule. And so, you could give them the option, but as far as not having those hard stop times, the crew will be less efficient because once they get up close to 350, they're going to if they know it's a hard stop time, they're going to work right to the finish line. But if not, then they're going to be way less productive in that last hour or two, thinking that if they're less productive and they take longer on their last couple mows, then you're just going to add more towards the end of the day. That's not very flexible.
Well, what I found when we started using P4P is we actually got more done in less time. And the guys did not want me to shift jobs off of their routes. Let's say I had several routes going at the end of the day. Some people are going slow, some are not going to finish, the other ones are going to be back sooner, and we just move people on other people's routes to wrap up at the same time. But once we started P4P, they would actually get mad when I would do that. And I remember Austin saying, "No, give me my mows back." And it changes the whole way they think about it. So Marcus, in your case, what do you do then if they say, no, I've got these 2 more, can I just get them done? Do they do that?
I mean, yeah, sometimes, but that's very rare. I mean, that almost never happens. Maybe, yeah, 5, 6, 7 years ago when you were the GM, when Lee and I were working under you, that was the case where people wanted more hours, but times have changed since then. So,
yeah,
if in the rare case that they want to just finish the route, maybe, but usually it's a hard stop time, and that saves a lot of strain on people because, nobody really thinks for the long term of what it might do for their body. So on a Monday, if they work a 10-hour workday, no, Liz, keep all my jobs on the schedule. They're going to work all this time in 100-degree heat, burn themselves out. And then Tuesday, they're going to call out sick 1 minute before work starts. So that's where it becomes a big problem.
I see. So you're monitoring for them, because you would say that somebody that was really driven, like say Nick was, can't self-monitor. So you have to monitor them.
Exactly. And it's systems oriented. So the sign of a successful business, this isn't just landscaping, this is most any business, is could you appoint a general manager? Could you have these systems in place to where you could put a general manager so that the owner yourself doesn't have to be on site? A general manager is not going to want to stay longer because the employee's staying longer doing more of their job. It's just less sustainable. And then you get into these places where we're showing up at these clients' property when it's dark, it's 8 p.m., the neighbors are complaining because the leaf blower is going. So having that hard stop time is just so systems oriented. It's so predictable. Everybody knows when they're going to start, when they're going to stop roughly. Again, on P4P, and that's the beauty of efficiency, is if you're getting it done sooner. Yeah, my guys right now, they're basically one person is having an 8 or 9 hour budgeted hour day, but they're getting it done by 1 or 2 p.m. So they're just getting off early. So I say a hard stop time, but again, it's not like I'm going to keep them right up until 3:50 if they get their schedule already done.
Mm-hmm. Lee, do you have anything to say to that?
Not particularly.
No.
Unless like, I mean, there's a lot that he's saying. So do you want me to just go right in? Do you want to moderate? I feel like there's too many layers. For me, when I talk about flexibility, I'm also talking about flexibility as the manager to the employee. And what that means is unlimited time off, unlimited late starts, unlimited asks to be off early. So you're giving that employee all the flexibility within, reason to them requesting that ahead of time. Obviously, I'm not going to give someone the day off early if they ask me the day of, right? That's going to change. So it's an exchange of value that I am giving them flexibility with. You have unlimited time off when you work for me. You have unlimited requests to show up late. You have unlimited requests to leave early. I ask in return that you maybe give me maximum 2 to 3 hours of flexibility at the end of your day. I think that is a fair exchange of value when I say you can do whatever you want with time off requests. Just give me more than enough heads up. I'll put it in the schedule. In return, I just want every once in a while 2 to 3 hours of flexibility towards the end of your day. And that's not something I'm tapping into every day, because as the business owner, if in this case, or as the manager, I want to make sure I'm not, overworking my crew and make sure that I'm not forcing people to do overtime. But there are times in the business where you have to take care of your customers. And that means maybe every once in a while, a longer day needs to happen. And in that case, I also am not just going to be the person in the office cracking the whip, telling all of my employees, you must work longer. I'm going to try to go out and help them. I'm going to go knock out a couple lawns. I'm going to go hop in a truck. I'm going to meet at that job site. Marcus, you and I have both done that. Kudos to you for doing that, is that we will go out and help our guys or our crew if they're having a late day. So it's a flexibility exchange of values, if you will.
I see. Well, Marcus, what do you do if you have somebody quit and if you had somebody say just call in on the same day? What are you going to do if you have to get those mows done and it's getting to be Thursday and you know you won't get them done Friday?
Yeah, I mean, that's where it just comes down to overhiring. So this is a point that Lee and I probably agree on. If you're talking about flexibility, what Lee said of basically going up to the employee and saying, hey, I need 2 to 3 hours a week of flexibility for me to add to your schedule towards the end of the day. That sounds great in practice, but people, when it comes down to it, they're not a logical mind. Like at the end of the day, when they've already worked an 8-hour day, it's hot, they're lifting all this stuff, they don't want to work more, they're finishing their schedule, so they're thinking, okay, I could just go home after this, I'll text Lee and then I'll go home. And then Lee says, hey, we talked about it, I just need that little bit of flexibility, I'm going to add 4 more mows to your schedule. That's where they're like, no, I feel sick, I'm going home.
Yes.
So, or they do it and then the next morning they call out sick, and then it adds more to that Friday, and then it's a big snowball effect of nobody wants to work because they think Lee's going to add more to their schedule, talking about flexibility. And then it just becomes a snowball effect of people calling out, and then you basically double everybody's workload to make up for the people that did call out. That's where it becomes a big problem.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely what happened with me, is they would be so wiped out after working too late that they'd call in the next day just because they couldn't do anymore. Yeah, Lee, do you have any response to that?
Well, I'd like Marcus to answer the question. It's Friday afternoon. You have a ton of jobs left on the schedule. You didn't answer the question. What do? You talked about, oh man, I don't want to overwork my guys. Okay, well, what are you going to do if you have 20 customers left to service their property? It's 3:30 on a Friday, so everyone's supposed to be off in 20 minutes, but there's no physical way that they can get that done in 20 minutes, right? Let's say you have 5 employees, there's 20 more visits, so they each have 4 more visits. More than likely in this industry, that's 2 to 3 hours that we're talking about, that 2 to 3 hours of flexibility. What do? Do you say, okay, everyone come back at 3:50 and I'll just lose 10 customers, 50 of them might cancel, or 50% of them might cancel, but go team?
I mean, it would never come down to that. That's a great question, and I know a lot of people were probably thinking that, but I would say, as the manager or owner, don't put yourself in that situation when it comes to scheduling. Schedule your projects and things you could make flexible. So that hasn't happened to me in these 2 years of business once, because I make my projects pretty flexible. So like on a Friday, we could move a project if we need to. The reason I could do that is because when it comes to things like recurring things that come down to projects, like maybe every 2 years somebody wants mulch, or 3 times a year somebody wants a bush trimming, I say your bush trimming will be done in April, June, and October, for example. And then let's say it's October. If I don't get it done that week, then I'll just move it to the next week, no problem. So it's giving yourself scheduling flexibility so that you're never in that situation. In that situation, yeah, I would concede that we would have to go the extra mile to get it done on that Friday, but that's really bad, being a manager in a sales and scheduling things if you're putting yourself in that situation on a Friday. If somebody calls out on a Friday, then they're basically guaranteed to work that Saturday, is what I tell my employees. But if they're not working that Friday, they work Saturday. It's not working extra hours. You're not going into overtime since they didn't work that Friday. So I would concede that point, but I would say never put yourself in that situation in terms of scheduling. Make that flexible as well and systems oriented.
I heard a couple interesting things there, though. You're telling them if they call in on Friday, they're expected to come in on Saturday and finish.
Anytime somebody calls out, one of my employees calls out during the week, I say, if we have extra mows on the schedule, you're guaranteed to work Saturday. So again, it's not the perfect like hard stop times versus not hard stop times, because there's little instances like that where, yeah, if you called out on a Monday and we're trying to finish up on a Friday, I say, hey, John, you could either work another 2 or 3 hours and make up for the time you missed, or you could do that on Saturday and you're not going in overtime, but you're still getting the schedule done. So that's where it could be a little flexible, but
okay.
Again,
let me interject there. Because
he thought
I have
he was
had
a nice guy for a minute. Now he sounds rigid, doesn't he?
Yeah, I know, right? Now, I have a question or a retort to that, which would be, okay, that's great. congratulations, you're amazing at scheduling and managing, and you have a wonderful team. I have experienced this. Liz has experienced this. I'm pretty sure you experienced it, where, hey, need you to come in on Saturday, or hey, need you to knock out a couple extra mows, and either radio silence, or all of a sudden their truck pulls in and then their personal car starts up and then they leave. Employee quits on you. Okay. Now, obviously, you're a good manager, you're a good owner, but that can happen. Or hypothetically, because you're the perfect manager and you manage your schedule so well, an employee gets injured. You cannot control it. You can be the best manager in the world. An employee trips, falls, break their ankle. They cannot operate heavy machinery or mowers with a broken ankle. What are you doing in that case? They quit without notice, or they have an injury that makes them unusable in the business. What do you do in that case?
His employees don't break their ankles, they chop their fingers off.
If you consider me an employee, yes. I mean, that's a great point. And when it comes down to it, wait, could you say, Liz threw me off? Could you say that one more? So if you,
the question is simple.
Yeah. So if somebody got injured,
yeah.
So if somebody got injured, yeah, I mean, it would be good for the rest of the team. Again, it comes down to how you're setting yourself up as a GM or an owner. So in that case, I would jump in, but we're talking about once in every 3 years, somebody, breaks their ankle or something like that happens. So in the once in every 3-year case, sure, we'll jump in, we'll work a little extra hours, but otherwise, if you don't have this system to where you have a hard stop time, then employees are going to basically tell their girlfriend in the morning is going to be like, what time are you getting off? Let's have this date. We'll go dress up. We'll go on this date. Just let me know what time you're off. And then the employee says, I don't know what time I'm going to be off, because sometimes Lee adds jobs to the end of my schedule. Sometimes we're working late. Maybe it's raining and we have to work more. That's where it becomes a problem. So in that rare instance, then yeah, I would make an exception. But again, we're talking every several years. I've been in my own franchise for 2 years now. That hasn't happened yet.
So I believe that if somebody has a business and they train somebody else, that person should make it better than them. And as they hand it down, that person should make it better and better. When Mike and I started, we didn't count budgeted hours. We didn't even think of a job in terms of how long it's going to take. Nothing like that. It's just gotten better and better with the franchise, and how all business owners have just become more professional or doing things better. So, Marcus, do you actually pick an amount of budgeted hours that your team is going to be able to do in a week? And do you overshoot it? Like you were saying earlier, you might budget 8 or 9 hours and they get it done in 6. How do you pick budgeted hours for the week to know that you're going to get all this done? Taking into an account that you might have somebody quit, you might have somebody call in. How do you think that through? He's the chosen frozen.
Uh-oh, do we lose him?
You can answer.
He had to leave. I get it.
I couldn't take the heat.
Well, yeah, while we wait for Marcus to come back, or hopefully his video loads, in that case, what I would do in defense of flexibility, I am always typically scheduling a little bit less than what my crew's capacity is. When you're managing humans, you have to assume there will be a human element to them working with you. That means there will be emergencies, there will be breakdowns, they will need to find a babysitter because their childcare dropped out on them, whatever it is, that's going to happen. So you need to account for the human element in your business, which means you need to technically schedule less work than your team's full capacity. By doing that, you are inherently creating flexibility in your schedule. Now, if an employee calls out sick, has a family emergency, then you are going to have to potentially ask your team to work a little bit longer or perform a little bit extra, if you will, on top of their normal duties. Because to Marcus's point earlier, hey, we're going to overhire. I agree. I think overhiring is appropriate in home service businesses. But at what point do you stop overhiring because you respect your team to actually show up every day and get the work done? Once again, it's an exchange of value. I respect my employees or my team members so much that I will schedule them full-time work. And if they don't show up, it's on them. And then as a team as a whole, we may have to pick up that slack, going back to the flexibility. And if everybody shows up and everybody's crushing it, and I'm doing my part as the manager to make sure routes are efficient, jobs are scheduled appropriately, typically everyone's going to get off early on Friday and make a lot of money on P4P.
Yeah, Marcus, I don't know when you got knocked off, but knocked out, you went down for the count. But did you hear what did you hear what we were talking about, the question about the budgeted hours?
Not really. Could you refrain it really quick for me?
Yeah. So the whole thought process of even having budgeted hours, and how do you think of that in regards to for a whole week? How many are you going to budget in? You're saying that you actually could give them 8 or 9 hours and they're done in 6 hours. So how do you plan for that when you know somebody could call in or somebody could quit? When you think of a week of work, how do you plan your budgeted hours?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I budget about 30 per employee. Yes, they are efficient. They're crushing these hours. But again, what happens with, and I know a lot of people listening, not just landscapers, can say, yeah, there's a lot of people going to call out. If you have a big team, you can pretty much plan on 1 or 2 people calling out sick every day. So although they are efficient, yeah, I only schedule about 30 budget hours per employee per week. And yeah, worst thing, if they're off on a Friday, then I wouldn't consider that actually really bad at all, because most people want to work less anyway, and they would prefer that Friday off. So 30 per employee, 120 total, since I have 4 employees. And again, that gives me flexion too to jump in if I need to as well.
Yeah, so we talk about how things have changed over time and how employees have changed. And when we started, Mike and I didn't ever even think about it being a holiday. Somebody had to tell us it was a holiday, and we planned our routes and scheduled everybody in, didn't even think a thing about it. We worked every single Saturday, didn't think a thing about it. And until somebody was like, oh, we're not supposed to work this much. But our team was the same also. They would work 115 hours and they wouldn't complain. So we thought that was normal. We didn't know anything else. And so tell me what it's like now, Marcus, compared to that.
Yeah, it's been completely different. So yeah, as of 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, everybody was looking for their job. It was hard to get a job, and people really valued their job much more. Now you drive down the street and everybody's hiring. So people, they want to work way less. It's maybe possible to get that to where you have a whole crew of people that really want to work hard, but it's very rare nowadays. So it's not very appealing to talk about that much anymore, because employers just can't find those employees anymore. They have so many different options.
Yeah. What have you found, Lee?
Yeah, I agree that there definitely is a shift in the labor market, 110%. I'm not gonna argue that, because that's true. It's proven the trends of people wanting to work less in terms of hours per week, more remote work, things of that nature. So that's 100% true what Marcus said. However, I would agree. I would state that you and Mike, whether you did or did not know what you were doing, scheduling a holiday, scheduling on Saturdays, I'll leave that up for another debate. I'm not here to say you did or didn't know what you were doing, but I remember my first year with Augusta, April through May, those 8 weeks, right? My first spring rush with Augusta, 7 out of 8 weeks, I worked a full Saturday. My first 2 years at Augusta during our busy season, March through November, it was rare to see a paycheck with less than 100 hours on it. So over two week pay period, you expect full-time work is 80 hours. Mine were consistently over 100. I think my highest was 124. So I worked an extra week in a 2 week period. Very fun, very good times. But it was an exchange of value. Mike rewarded us with massive bonuses, with dinners. You always had the office stocked with snacks and coffee and chocolate milk and donuts and you name it. And anytime I wanted to take a vacation or show up later or leave early, I never got to know. I remember one time I told you, I was like, hey, I'm going on a family trip. I need like 2 weeks off. And it was like middle of summer. And you were like, okay. It was the exchange of value. You gave me flexibility to just take 2 weeks off during our busy season, knowing that I was willing to put in the long hours. So that might not be as common. You might not find as many employees that are willing to work 80, 90, 100 hours every pay period, every 2 weeks. I understand that. But you need to have that conversation when you onboard them. What is the exchange of value? Hey, I'm exchanging as many time off requests as you want, vacation requests. I'm going to do a PTO, whatever it is. My exchange of value is, once again, maybe the flexibility of a few extra hours every week. Now, not to the extremes you and Mike were doing it, but hey, sometimes you may need to work in an 85 hour, a 90 hour pay period, but I will compensate you for that.
Do you have conversations like that with your team, Marcus?
No, we never really go past 350. It's a rule, as always. So yeah, if the employees, if Lee's team is working an extra 5 or 6 hours in overtime a week, that's great. You're just losing all that in terms of money. And if you're on P4P as well, the crew loses money, because on P4P, you either get base pay plus overtime, or you get whatever that P4P is. And so the more you go into overtime, you're not going to, say you have $200 of P4P, but the more you go into overtime, as overtime gets slightly higher, say base plus overtime is $201 and P4P is $200, they get $201. They don't get $401. So it's worse for the employees. They make less money. And then if you're going into overtime, you're also, if you're not on P4P, you're paying time and a half, which, say you're at $20 an hour base, not on P4P. Let's see, I did the numbers on this, and hopefully you guys could, I'm not cutting in and out, because I could hear you.
Nope, you're good.
Some of the time. Okay, perfect. So if you do, $20 an hour, you work a $40 hour.
He was going to give false information.
Yeah, it
He
dropped
was
him.
frozen. So maybe he'll come back on. Actually, you probably know exactly what he was going to say.
Maybe, I'm not 100% sure, but he was going down the trail of doing the math. So if you're doing, depends on your hourly rate.
Oh, sorry.
We lost you. We missed all that math.
Yep, you were just starting to
I'm so
multiply.
sorry. I don't know what's going on.
That's all right. Go for it again.
Dang it. Yeah. Am I?
Are you
Can you
there?
hear me now?
Yep. Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Basically what I was saying, what the math cracked down to, if you're just doing 2 hours of overtime per week, that's an extra $3,000 per year that you're paying in overtime. So that's for the landscapers or home service or any business that don't do that performance-based system. If you're not doing these hard stop times, and again, it's just, as the employer, you're looking at the money, you're looking at the schedule. You just want to get everything done to make sure all your clients are happy. But if you're always going into overtime, and in Lee's case, an extra 5 to 6 hours per week, that equates to thousands and thousands of dollars per year per employee. So that's where it becomes a big problem. And as business owners, you're just caught in the rush of everything. You want to get the schedule done, but again, it's just having systems in place saying, okay, employees, if you crush your schedule, you're off early. If not, we'll get done at 3:50. That way you can still go have dinner with your wife and your girlfriend, and you'll be ready to go for the next day, and you'll have plenty of rest. But that's where it becomes an issue if you are working in overtime, or just the subconscious of the employee to know, okay, if something really bad happens, or somebody calls out, or it's a bad week or something, or a bad day, I'm not going to go past 3:50. I'll be fine. I'll be good to go. I could still have dinner with my girlfriend or husband or wife or whatever, and then be ready to go for the next day, and not calling out because they're burnt out. That's where it becomes a big snowball effect and a huge problem.
Got it. You want to say anything to that, Lee?
Systems in place. That's what it's all about.
And I always agree with systems in place, but I think there's just such an element of flexibility in the business. And I agree with the financial implications that too much overtime time can be a financial burden on the business. I agree with that 110%. But I also think if you have a team that is geared towards high performance, throttling that is potentially a negative thing. So Marcus, I pose a real question to you. Today, 2 people made the choice to join Augusta. Very excited. Jameson and, who was the other one? I'm blanking on it. Brian. Jameson and Brian decided to join Augusta. That means Lee has a lot more work to do today because I have to onboard them. Well, should I tell Mike I'm leaving at 4 today? Or should I take care of those new Augusta owners, get them set up, send them all their follow-up emails, make them feel welcome before the weekend? What do you say to that? Or should I have flexibility with Mike and be like, I'm representing his brand. Yes, it's extra work, but these people just paid. I should put in a little extra effort today.
You put in the extra. Why would you be onboarding them at 4 p.m. though? When everybody else is getting done, just onboard them the next morning at 7:50.
Well, it's a Friday.
Just outsource.
But it's a Friday.
If you're a good general manager, onboard them Monday. Well, what's the big rush?
Because it looks bad. It looks bad.
Is your schedule not done or something? Because again, it just goes back to the.
I'm just saying they paid a substantial amount of money to join Augusta, and then they're going to wait 3 days to hear from me. That leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It'd leave a bad taste in my mouth.
I'd say, hey, Bryce or Lee or whoever Brian, in this example, I'd say, hey,
Brian and Jameson.
Brian and Jameson, thank you so much for interviewing with me. I called your references. Everything looks good to go. We'd love to have you part of the team. Yes or no? They said yes. Okay, we'll onboard you Monday. That's it. Easy.
That is
If they
typically
say
how
they want to
business
work
is
sooner,
done.
I say, hey, we don't work on the weekends. We'll get you started on Monday.
I like trying to perform at a high level, and I like giving my employees and my team the opportunity to perform at high levels. I also think all three of us would agree, what is it? There's no growth in the comfort zone. The comfort zone is a 9 to 5. As soon as you go to 5:30 or 6 p.m., that's going to be uncomfortable. And I think it's also a good test for your employees to see who's going to stick with you in the long term, who's willing to get their hands a little dirty, who's willing to grind. I do not recommend doing this all the time. That is not what I'm saying. But having that flexibility, you will then have an inherent test to who is willing to grind for you and your business without even trying.
I think that really comes down to what people have seen in Mike and I, and then they feel like they have to do those things that Lee's talking about. Maybe would you say that, Marcus? Whereas somebody else that's run their business very systematized wouldn't even have a clue what Lee's talking about right now when he says that he should just keep doing the job for the next 2 hours. Most people would be like, "No, it's time to leave." Abnormal.
That's why I don't associate with most people.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to that, Marcus?
And yeah, that's where it does come down to. Yeah, if you have a general manager or any employees that want to work later, yeah, I mean, it will be a good Rorschach test for future general managers of do they have what it takes to get those hours done in a day, because that looks very good. And I'd maybe want to appoint them to be a general manager or better employee. Did I lose you guys again?
Nope. We got you. Kinda. Can you hear us? Yep, you're there.
Maybe he lost us.
Maybe. So I have a question when he gets back on, but I can ask you, what do you do if you have an overgrown mow that's accepted right in the middle of all of these mows? If you don't mow it and you put it off for the next week, now it's going to take your crew even longer. Mm-hmm. So what do you do when you get these overgrown mows, and if you do that initial service, you're probably going to have the recurring service, mm-hmm. but now you've only budgeted a certain amount for the week. What are you going to do if you get one accepted?
Mm-hmm. That's where, and I think Marcus would agree with me on this, you have to leave a little bit of buffer room in your schedule, especially if you have a rush season or a season with more predictable demand. You should always buffer in your schedule. And what I'm buffering for is more flexibility from my team. Hey, for the next 2 months, typically in our market, April to May is when we get the most amount of new mowing customers at Mike's Augusta locations. What that means is we need to put in a buffer into our schedule, knowing that that demand is coming, so as to not overwork our employees, but to create flexibility in the schedule. And then you just tell your employees for those 2 months, hey, you might have to have a longer day, once again, every once in a while, because we need to onboard all these new customers. Also, with the way we set up our P4P, we pay our employees more during that 2-month period because we understand it's harder work, because we understand there might be longer days. We are actually paying them more. So once again, I come back to it's an exchange of value. For those 2 months, yes, I might ask you to work a little bit of overtime, but I'm going to pay you more for it. And it's going to set you up to make better performance dollars in summer when we have more dense routes, more stops per route. You will make more money when the grass growth is slowing down and the weather is fantastic. So it's a win-win. Typically, what we look at when I was looking at payroll numbers for Mike's locations, yes, on average, our crew was doing 41, 42 hours a week. So 1 to 2 hours of overtime a week during spring rush. However, in the summer, they're consistently 4 to 6 hours, so 34 to 36 hours per week. So they're working less in the summer, but making the same, if not more. So it's just that little exchange of value. Hey, I might need you to work a couple extra hours in spring. During summer, you might work a little bit less.
Yeah, so Marcus, I don't know if you heard the question that I had just asked, but it was about if somebody accepts an initial mow and you already have this all scheduled out, you have this one opportunity to get this mow and this possibly a recurring client. And if you don't take it, or push them off till the next week, it's going to be even more work and take longer, and you probably will lose the customer. So what do you do in that case?
You will very rarely lose the customer. Usually they could wait 2 days for you to mow their property on a Monday, so that's not a big deal. If they're going to lose their mind and say, no, I need it mowed by today, then that's not the client you want anyway. So every 1 in 100 clients will want it done by that Friday in the next hour. And then they're going to be a big problem client for you moving forward because you're not there at a certain time and all these different lists of job notes that you have to get done. Everybody listening to this that's a landscaper knows there's clients like that. But yeah, we just move it to the Monday. We say, hey, we're out of the office here at 3:50. If you don't do that and you know, are responding to them after hours, or you email them or call them on like a weekend, say, like Lee talked about, no growth in the comfort zone. You're the owner, you're the general manager, you're wanting to still get that task list done, maybe on the weekend or work those extra hours. It sounds great in practice, but you're actually, again, aside from just not leaving room for, you know, the work-life balance, is you're training your clients to actually say, oh, these guys answer, you know, the owner and the general manager is going to call me all the time on weekends, and they're going to respond to my emails on the weekends. You're training them to be able to do that. So, you know, you could forget about in the future hiring a general manager if you're not going to tell them you're working weekends, because all of your recurring client base expects you to be able to answer, you know, phone calls and emails and everything on weekends when you're technically supposed to be closed. So it's not good.
I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that. That's just not the conversation. I had a strict cutoff time for emails and for phone calls with customers. We're talking about our team. I agree with you there, but with the team, that's a different case. When the work that was already accepted and scheduled, potentially deposits are put down, needs to get done. That is when I'm going to implore flexibility. When it comes to customer communication, I agree with you. Hard cutoff times, different conversation though. So just stay on task.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, in that case, say, yeah, it's a Friday, the weekend's coming up. You still got jobs to do on the schedule. If you have an initial mow, you want to prioritize those, and your existing clients that you already have a very good quality of service for, you've mowed their property 1,000 times. They love you. They can't find anybody else that's more professional or consistent, or you know, we have Command Center Augusta that answers the phones for us. Then you can, you know, say, so sorry, we'll be there either Monday or Tuesday. I've done that a couple times, whether it's, I haven't done it on mows because I move the projects before I move the mows. So I would say a project, hey, we'll move it just to that Monday. We'll get it done. And, you know, we're so sorry, you know, we sincerely apologize for this, but we're over on the week. As you know, it rained Monday and Tuesday. Our clients recognize, okay, these guys are professional, they're consistent. Things like this happen. It's no problem. Again, the 1 in 100 clients that's going to be really mad about that, that's probably not a client you want anyway. So,
a different angle on that, though, or even to push back a little bit, or maybe to clarify, is I want this initial mow. So it's spring rush, and I'm getting them accepted like this. And if I don't get them on, I'm not going to get that customer, meaning me. I want to fit them in. So when we would get them accepted, I was trying to put them on the same day or the next day. So I would get the customer, and so I would get them mowed this week for my own self, because next week it was going to be even harder for the guys to get to the initial mow. So I'm thinking of the guys. So do you ever throw an initial mow on in the mix somewhere with the new customer?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I throw it on right away. Any initial mow, I think you're right. They're looking for, you know, a contractor that's going to do it right away. So yeah, it's an easy solution. You just put it at the front of the employee's schedule so they get it done first. And then, you know, again, if at the end of the day we need to move 1 or 2 mows to that Saturday for a guy that called out Monday to do, then we'll do that. But yeah, we always prioritize initial overgrown mows. But if I may, before I cut off for the second or third time, and I very much apologize, my internet was really good right up until about 15 minutes ago. So I am sorry.
Are you watching the numbers fall?
I'm watching, yeah, these bars fall from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, and then I'd be right in the middle of saying something and then it cuts off. But no, I do apologize. But what I will say before we cut off is Lee was making the point that how are you going to see like the employees or general managers that go the extra mile to get those extra jobs done in the day? But my argument is that there's infinitely many ways for an employee to show a general manager or an owner, that they can go the extra mile. They are maybe GM or start their own business type of material without working extra hours. I think that's the thing in the past. In the past 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago, yeah, it was who worked the most. Now it's who's most efficient. I have a guy that's working with me now for a year and a half that he's always done around, 1:30. No yellow slips, no callbacks, things like that. He's our most efficient, always crushes it on P for P. That's not working extra hours. I could see how hard he's working in terms of doing that. He's also on our audiobook program. He's going the extra mile trying to upsell customers. So Lee's point is invalid there because there's infinitely many ways to show that you are, a good employee or GM material by working extra.
Anything in rebuttal to that, Lee?
Yeah, just the number one determining factor of a successful general manager or leader is the ability to grind. Quote, not Lee Park, Mike Andes, one of the most successful business owners the three of us have had the pleasure of knowing. You have to have that ability to grind. So I do agree with Marcus. There are the intangibles that you should promote on, that you should reward 110%. But one of the most important qualities in a general manager or a leader in your business is the ability to grind. And the ability to grind, I would not define as just someone that's willing to put in the long hours, but it is that self-starterness. It is that person that can manage themselves and also see outside of themselves. They can understand that, okay, Marcus is asking me to do a long day. It's not because he hates me. It's not because this job sucks. It's not because our customer sucks. It's not because my life is the worst. It's strictly because we had a little too much work on the schedule and we just have to get it done, right? And those are the type of people that are going to be successful, not only managers, but also potentially business owners one day, like yourself, Marcus.
So somebody might ask you, Marcus, if you're on a project and you're wrapping up at 350, 250, whatever you said, and you still have stuff to return, rentals and everything. Are you going to try to have them stop earlier when they're almost done with the job?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes in that case, or if somebody down the street is wrapping up early, then they could go grab that aerator and return it, or me as the general manager would go do that for them. But
Okay.
in terms of, if I may have a rebuttal for Lee's point, is that, I think all three of us here and Mike and everybody, we appreciate the grind. We have a lot of respect for people that could grind, but I also have a lot of respect for people that could really focus and hone in. So it's the worst sales pitch for if I want a general manager to run my business one day, for me to say, hey, there's things that need to get done. If you're having to do it at night or on weekends and things, you could forget about your personal life. You're the general manager. You get it done no matter what. So that becomes a big strain, and it's not a really great sales pitch to a general manager. So in terms of grinding, again, it's like a psychological thing. I have so much to do on my schedule. I could, do it during dinner. I could do it at the end of the day, right before I'm going to bed. And then I could wake up early the next morning and do more of it. And then I'll do even more of it on weekends, but that's going to burn you out. It's going to make you more stressed. That's going to make your general manager quit on you randomly. And then you're in a really bad situation. You want to teach your general manager, hey, 750 to 350, you're all go, you're hardcore, you're efficient, you're getting things done, you're laser focused. Because if you don't have that hard stop time, they just need systems in place. That's why the military does it. That's why almost every workplace does it, is because they have a predictable start and stop time. And if you don't have that hard stop time, whether it's your employee or general manager, they have no idea when they're going to be done. They could be doing work at night if it's the case of the general manager, and that's where it leads to burnout. And they also make excuses for themselves. A lot of us we're human beings. We like to do what's most comfortable. So if I have 2 more estimates to do in the day, but maybe, it's 250 and we get it off in an hour and I have 2 more estimates to do, maybe I'm burnt out for the week. I'm not feeling very good. And I make an excuse for myself. Oh, I have 2 more estimates. I could just do that on, Friday night or on a weekend or something like that. I could just outsource it. We make excuses for ourselves. So just making a rule for yourself that, hey, I'm going to stick within the bounds of our work hours. It trains our clients to not be contacting us outside of office hours. And then it trains our GM, for the people running the show, that they can still have a personal life outside of work itself. And then, when it comes to 250 and they know they're going to be off in an hour, they're laser focused trying to get everything done.
Yeah. How do you feel about having crew routes of 2 and of 1? Do you ever switch them up in order to get more done in a day, or do you budget your 30 hours per person every week?
Yeah, I mean, it's on average, overall big picture, it is 30 hours per person per week, but we switch it up between 1 and 2 man crews. Right now, it's mainly 2 man crews. I have 4 guys and 3 trucks. So usually I'm solo in a truck, either doing a project or out doing estimates. I need that flexion, whereas the other 2 trucks are fully occupied by 2 and then 4. The other employees. So usually it's 2 man crews. What is most efficient is to have the extra assets in terms of trucks. 1 man crews efficiency, and that's over across all of Augusta Nation. It is a little bit more efficient on 1 man routes, unless you're doing like huge, maybe like zero
Mhm.
field mows where there's a lot of string trimming and a lot of mowing. But usually, like by the time one person's done string trimming and then the other person's done mowing, it almost never is exactly the same. So that's where you lose a little bit of efficiency if it is a 2 man crew.
Yeah, so Lee, with your stance of let's see, work till we get it done, do you move guys around for morale's sake when you know you're going to be pushing them a little harder, especially at the end of the week? Do you kind of
Mhm.
watch them, like who's a little
Yep.
weaker, who's having a rough week, put somebody else with them instead of knowing that they're going to get out there on a solo route and they're going to say they're sick and need to come back?
Yeah, 110%. And there is that element of, subjectivity to scheduling your crew. Now, everybody on your team should pull their own weight. I believe that wholeheartedly. Everyone who is a part of your business should equally carry the weight of their responsibilities and not rely on others. But there are times where someone might have to work a longer day. Someone, had 2 vacation days early in the week, so they're a lot fresher. Yes, you're going to have those elements of subjectivity where, okay, you're going to put the person who's a little bit fresher, maybe a little bit more experienced with the person who's having a harder week. I think we all know that sometimes you have to find those personality matches like, oh man, this person's kind of dragging. They've worked a really hard week. Well, I'm going to pair them up with, I know someone that they really like working with and is doing really well. And then you sometimes have people on your team that I would just classify as a grinder, as a compliment. And that's the type of person that you can just rely on to get work done. And, you hope that they are willing to keep grinding with you and just really pour on the praise and really make sure that your team feels supported through those times. So yes, the subjectivity of who you schedule with what jobs and what assets is very important for team morale, and also making sure that you can stay flexible with your kind of start times and end times.
Mhm. Marcus, do you find that you have one stronger person that kind of sets the pace for all the other ones? And if it was one of the weaker team, do you feel like they'd all be kind of coming down to that person's level?
Yeah, definitely. I do have 1 guy, the same guy that I told you about that's been with me for about a year and a half. That, yeah, he does set that standard, like a Nick Reed, where he's really getting everything done. He's crushing his schedule. He's making people aware if there are quality issues. He's not coming to me about it. The best thing he could do is go to that employee that
Hmm.
was their last visit and tell them. So yeah, that's a great thing to have, and it's more rare. But yeah, I think Lee and I and you, Liz, can agree that the more we can harbor a workplace that rewards those types of people, the better. So.
Hmm. I think as our business has gone along and Mike and I have matured a little bit and learned business more, and the same with you guys, each position you've made better and better. I think now, like even looking here today on my desk, I have all of Mike's schedule here. Well, in years past, we couldn't have done that. We had to do what Lee was saying. We had to grind. We had to do everything. There was no saying, I'm going to give 30 hours to this guy and 30 hours to that guy. There was no other guy. We were too new, didn't know what we were doing in every aspect. But when the business is pouring in, you just got to get it done sometimes. And yet, like Marcus was saying, a lot of listeners might be in that stage where they're just drowning, but they need to work towards something that's what you would call balanced or structured, or a system, at least working towards that, where they'll be able to say, like you guys were saying earlier, we're not going to answer emails or answer the phones after this certain time. And then you're going to tell the crew, like with Marcus, what he's doing is, okay, there's a little hope at the end of the day. I promised my girlfriend we're going to be there at 6, and we are. I know that Marcus will have me off. Whereas in our case, I mean, looking back, I know it was terrible. The guys were incredible that they would even stay and finish and push off their plans. I mean, that was wrong of us, but we learn and we mature over time. And I would never do that now. I would hire more people now to be able to cover for those kind of things, so you don't have to push people so hard. And of course, here's our perfect boss. Here's my little thing just typed out. But
A cheat sheet.
every single minute of our day is structured and defined about what's going to happen. So that's what Marcus is talking about, when you can finally get to a place where every minute is accounted for. But in the minutes that we are working, we're grinding pretty hard.
I do have a
Exactly.
question.
And that's exactly why Lee loses this debate, is because structure is everything. They know they're going to be off at 3:50, so they're laser focused to get everything done. If Lee's the general manager and he says, well, maybe I'm going to add jobs at the end of your schedule at the end of the day, they're going to hate you as the GM. They're not going to be able to make dinner with their girlfriend or wife, and then they're calling out sick the next morning, and then it becomes a bigger issue for the rest of the team. Big snowball effect. So, and especially since the fact that now anybody could just walk down the street and get any job. Everybody has a now hiring sign out, so they could just get in any job. If you make them work an extra couple hours in a week, people aren't grinders. There's 1 in 50 people you're going to employ are those grinder type. As much as we want to harbor that, everybody else isn't willing to put an extra couple hours, which is sad to say now, but the times are changing. And
times are changing.
So yeah, just having that 350 hard.
Yeah, and that's great. I don't know what fairyland Marcus is living in, where everyone shows up on time and everyone wants to leave at the same time. Like, however he's running his business, I don't know. Someone get him in contact with Jeff Bezos so he can run Amazon, because apparently he's mastered business and he has nothing else to learn. But for those of us living in the real world, 99% of those businesses that he said have hiring signs up, guess what? They aren't offering unlimited vacation. They aren't offering unlimited late starts, unlimited get off early, requests, things of that nature. It's just that exchange of value. I am giving you so much freedom as your manager, as the owner of the business, and I just need a little bit of flexibility in your schedule. And if that doesn't work for someone, that's fine. And that's one thing that Mike talks about, is there are rules of the game in your business. Marcus has defined the rules of the game, that they have a hard start time and a hard stop time. My rules of the game are, I'm going to give you a ton of flexibility as an employee, but I ask for a little bit of flexibility back as a manager. And that's really the, once again, exchange of value that we're getting at. So kudos to you, Marcus. But I do have a question, because I am the one who ran payroll when you were a manager for one of Mike's locations. I have yet to see someone work more hours than you in a year time at Augusta. You worked more hours than me. So, simple question to you: why did you do it?
Touche. To be honest, it was a personal thing for me. I really found a lot of solace in work. My personal life wasn't much of one at all. And that was the past couple of years. So all my frustrations and excitements and everything, I just wanted to harbor towards business. But that is, it's very rare. Almost no general manager that you want to appoint in your business is going to have that quality. If you do, great, you won the lottery. But most people aren't willing to delegate their whole personal life to your business to try to grow it. And if that's the case, then I was a huge payroll tax on the business, because I was working so many hours into overtime. So it became a strain actually on the business, not having those hard stop times. So what I did was actually bad for the business.
I would like to note that you said an employee that's willing to work overtime and grind is like winning the lottery. So I think I rest my case.
You have anything to say to that?
I don't know.
Nope.
I don't know if he froze again. He had to leave.
He can have no response. He's down for the count. Let me see if there was any final things I was wanting to ask. Oh, I wanted to ask you, Marcus, about non-revenue tasks. So where do you fit those into that time frame for your day, or do you set aside certain hours during the week for your crew to do maintenance and things?
My stage of business, that doesn't apply to me. I only have 4 guys. All the non-revenue generating tasks I do myself, and I feel like anybody in my position should do the same. If you have employees fixing equipment and things, you're the GM. You should have that extra flexion for yourself, so that your employees are strictly 100% of the time, or as close as you could get to 100% of the time, having the mower blades turning on somebody's property. So
I love it.
Yeah, I'd say up to like 10 employees, that's when maybe you should get somebody that fixes equipment, but otherwise just YouTube University, just do it yourself.
Yeah, 100%. Do you feel like you as a person that it depends on the leader, the way you're trying to inspire them and lead them and give them the resources like Audible and things? Do you think that makes the difference that they're willing to submit to the systems you have and don't, kick and scream and buck against the systems? Do you feel like it's because you're a good leader?
I think so. Yeah. And it's just trying to provide the best workplace that you can, even if none of my current guys that I have now become a general manager, I still want them to, have a great place to work and to be able to listen to, things like Audible and those systems and things. It really helps them out. If they're not in Augusta in 5 years, all of us say this is, hey, no problem. Go do what you want to do. If you learned, did I lose you again?
Nope, you're good. Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. I just want to harbor a nice workplace. What I told, I kind of had this vision when we talked about it years ago at one of our meetings with the general managers. Is we said, or what I said is, I want my Augusta location to be like a fun summer camp for people where they come in, they have a ton of fun. It's a great time. They get to go home at a predictable time.
You're such a dork. And then you pause. That was epic. Yes, that's what Marcus used to say.
It's a beautiful thing. It's realizing that they're not going to stay long term. Sorry, did I cut in and out?
Nope, you're good. You go ahead. We were making fun of you.
Sorry. Yeah. It's just realizing in our profession, a lot of home service professions, your employees are going to stay maybe a couple months on average before they either are fired by you or quit. So in that time, I want to train them up as quick as possible within a week, if they already have a little bit of experience, but definitely within 2 weeks, to where you're not spending all this time and money on training. And the systems are predictable. They love it. They have all these incentives outside of working the extra hours. There's so many different ways to make more money in the systems, like getting a 5-star Google review, upselling a client, even listening to our audiobooks. They get money based on that. So there's so many different ways other than just burning money by making them go into overtime.
So what would you say, Marcus, to the business owner who's really just throwing stuff on the schedule as no rhyme or reason? How would you help them to even try to create a system where they can pull this back and get everything running efficiently?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hardest thing to do. If they're just throwing things on the schedule, that sounds like a spring rush type of thing where everything's just coming at them like a fire hose. You do need to take a step back, which is the hardest thing, you can't do when you have so many things stacking up on your schedule. Maybe that weekend, you just take a second for yourself and say, how can I grow this business sustainably? Is the work we're doing right now even profitable? Or are we going so much into overtime, or we're not route dense and things like that? It's kind of a sales pitch to Mike's channel and Mike's courses, but he teaches you those key performance indicators, what's really important in the business, because there are infinitely many metrics in a business, but there's only a handful that are really important to growing it. So you just got to hone in and be focused and only know those numbers, and everything else is just not that big.
Lee, what would you say to the business owner in that place?
Yeah, I would say they definitely need systems. They need something in place to make sure that they don't, burn out their team and burn out themselves. You can only have flexibility if there is something to be flexible with. What you're describing is chaos, and flexibility does not exist unless there is something to create tension or to bend or to manipulate. So there needs to be a set schedule, typically a set start time, and ultimately an understanding of what the work is on the schedule. Like Marcus was saying, we typically use budgeted hours, we use efficiency scores. Check out Mike's channel for more, but that you need that structure, which then gives you the room to be flexible. But if you don't have that structure in any way, shape, or form, you can't have hard stop times, you can't have flexibility, you just have chaos.
So actually, people, we do all love each other. But if you actually heard us in the office, sometimes Marcus can give the sweetest slams. He can say the meanest things with such a smile on his face. But we just give it right back to each other. So in finalizing this talk today, Marcus, give us your final reason and your final stance, and wrap it all up for us by telling us your position and why you're going to hold to it.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, the reason I won this debate, and this is pretty amazing what I did too, because despite the deep state trying to destroy my Wi-Fi because I was beating Lee so bad, I was able to push through, still make my points, and really it just comes down to our industry. There's so much turnover going on that we just want our employees to feel appreciated. When they feel appreciated, when they're working less hours but making more, they're going to show up more. It's going to be more predictable. You have more flexibility on the schedule, and you have those hard stop times that prevents them from going into overtime, missing out on life things. They care a lot more about life than your business, FYI. And so, I have way less employees leaving because of that. They're way more efficient. Productivity is way higher. There's so many stats that I didn't even get to that says productivity is way higher when people know just the amount of hours they're going to work, and even less hours is better. So that's one thing Lee and I agree on, is just the flexibility of the schedule and the work hours, but you can't flex it in the other way of making them work way overtime because we are in a labor specific industry, because people are out in the sun, they're out in the elements, and it really wears on your body. And worse, even if they're in the office and you're making them work 10, 12 hours a day, then the next day they're just going to call out sick. So you're not really doing much for yourself. And I feel like a lot of business owners and landscapers and even home service, anybody in the home service industry can relate to that. So you got to have those hard stop times so that in that last hour, it's, hey, everybody, let's just crush it. So nobody has to work Saturday. Let's crush it and get it done by 3:50. And if you don't have those hard stop times, then that very last hour in the day, they're going to just twiddle their thumbs, even if they only have one tiny little quarter-hour job on their schedule. They're going to twiddle their thumbs because they're afraid that if you're done early, then Lee is going to stack more and more and more on your schedule, and then you're working later, and you're missing dinner with your husband or wife, which, man, it's a tough thing. So
Tell us about it, Marcus.
It's a tough thing, Lee. So.
Yeah.
Well, Lee, did you notice in his little wrapping up spiel there that he had 2 moments of weaknesses when he actually conceded to your points? Did you pick that up?
I picked up one. If you wouldn't mind telling me and the audience both of them, that'd be fantastic.
Well, I don't remember them both specifically, but the first one I'm like, whoa, I think he agrees with Lee there. And then a little bit later, it's like, I think he does agree with Lee there. So
Lee right off the bat took that word flexibility. That's something that we agree on. It doesn't prove his point. Proving the point that if you're behind the 8 ball on the 3:50 stop time, great. My employees are so efficient. They get done at 1 or 2 p.m., but they're still getting all the work done in the day. Me as a company makes more money. They're more efficient. They have P for P. They're making more money. But you can't say flexibility to your employee, like this great word, flexibility of your schedule, while forcing them to go the extra mile on a Friday, working extra 2 or 3 hours. That doesn't sound very flexible to me.
Yeah, Lee.
Yeah, well, I completely understand where he's coming from, but the idea is that flexibility, as I said earlier in the conversation, is typically needed Monday through Thursday. And typically when I was managing crews that were out servicing customers' properties, the idea was they would get off early on Fridays. Creating that flexibility creates a reward for the employees and an incentive to work harder and get done sooner in the day. And Marcus, I know you're a man of science. I know that you are very interested in genetically modified foods and adaptability and sustainability. So because you're a man of science, I would like to actually end with a quote from one of the greatest scientists of all times, and that is Mr. Charles Darwin. And it is not the strongest of species that survives, nor the most intelligent, i.e. the one with systems and structure. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. And that is why I believe in flexible end times for my team.
Listen to him. He wants to get the last word. And it was Marcus who called for this debate. So Marcus, the very smart one, the intellectual here, should have the final
Man of science. Marcus is the
man of science.
Beautiful.
So please refute Charles Darwin. Please refute that.
It's a beautiful quote. I will never refute Charles Darwin. He's such a guy. I'm sure he had hard cutoff times so that he could have time for himself to
down in the Galapagos.
Just innovate more. So
totally.
But yeah, we'll let America and Canada and the rest of the world decide who won this debate. I think I did, despite, like I told you, the problems with my service, which I do apologize for. Not very professional, but. We'll let the people decide. I think it was a great debate. I think a lot of things that people could take value of is the things we agreed on is having things and systems in place like pay for performance to where the crew is making more money, having a workplace in which, even though there's so much turnover in the industry, you as a business are a big exception to that because you harbor a great workplace that people want to work for. So that's the big thing that I think we could agree on a lot more. But yeah, I'm not going to make my employees work way late out into the night and into the next morning. So.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to these two wonderful intellectual giants who came to visit us today and prove their points. And we'll see you all again next time.